Before becoming Pope Leo XIV, he was known as Robert Francis Prevost. Born in the United States in Chicago on September 14, 1955, he grew up in a Catholic family of Latin origin, marked by a simple and profound faith, with strong roots in devotion and parish life. From an early age, Robert was deeply touched by the life of the Church. He attended Mass regularly with his parents and siblings and took an active part in parish youth activities, where he began to develop a contemplative gaze and a quiet love for prayer and service. One decisive moment of his childhood came when, at the age of 13, he began helping with the catechesis of younger children. This involvement awakened in him a vocation to be an educator of the faith, something that would later become a hallmark of his pastoral mission. During high school, while his classmates were immersed in secular career plans, Robert delved into spiritual readings, especially the works of St. Augustine, St. Teresa of Avila, and St. John of the Cross, which stirred in his heart a profound desire for consecration. His priestly vocation blossomed with greater intensity when he encountered the Augustinians. Their spirituality, centered on interior search, community life, and truth, fascinated him, leading him to enter the Order of St. Augustine. He entered the Augustinian novitiate in 1977 and professed his simple vows the following year. The initial formation, marked by study, silence, and fraternal living, was a true laboratory of the soul, where his self-offering to Christ matured. He studied philosophy and theology at the Catholic Theological Union of Chicago, one of the most renowned theological institutions in the United States. There, he deepened his understanding of Catholic doctrine and distinguished himself as a dedicated and balanced seminarian. After his priestly ordination in 1982, the young Father Robert was sent as a missionary to Peru, beginning a crucial chapter of his life that would profoundly shape his pastoral identity. Arriving in Trujillo, in the north of the country, he found a suffering yet deeply welcoming people. The challenges were immense: extreme poverty, violence, lack of access to basic services, but the people's faith burned like embers hidden beneath ashes. Instead of being overcome by the harshness of reality, Father Robert drew close. He quickly learned Spanish, patiently listened to the people's struggles, visited the sick, encouraged the youth, and celebrated with fervor. The mission in Peru proved to be, for him, a true school of Christian love. Confronted with material misery, he witnessed the greatness of those who trust in God, even amid tribulations. Between 1985 and 1988, he took charge of forming new Augustinian religious in the country, becoming master of novices. Here, he revealed himself to be a prudent formator, faithful to the magisterium and deeply humane, able to inspire and correct with gentleness. In 1988, he was appointed regional vicar of the Augustinians in Peru, a role he exercised with balance, fostering communion among the houses and strengthening community life. From then on, he demonstrated governance skills united to pastoral sensitivity. He returned to the United States in 1989, where he served as a formator in the Augustinian Seminary and was later elected provincial prior. His leadership was marked by active listening and a clear vision of fidelity to the Church's tradition. In 2001, he was elected Prior General of the Order of St. Augustine, a position that took him to Rome and placed him more directly in the life of the Universal Church. He remained in this office until 2013, being re-elected for 2 terms. As Prior General, he visited dozens of countries, encountering ecclesial realities on every continent. He always sought to promote unity within the diversity of the order, with doctrinal firmness and an openness to respectful dialogue. One hallmark of his service was his care for the initial and ongoing formation of the religious, always insisting on the centrality of the life of prayer, liturgy, and study of church doctrine. At the end of his term as Superior General, he was already known in ecclesial circles as a discreet man, deeply spiritual, endowed with practical intelligence, oriented toward conciliation and truth. In 2014, Pope Francis appointed him Bishop of Chiclayo, Peru, recognizing his missionary bond with the country and his capacity to shepherd with tenderness and firmness. For his episcopal motto, he chose "Christ is all in all," inspired by St. Paul's letter to the Colossians. This motto reflected not only a biblical inspiration, but a guiding principle of his entire journey. As bishop, he sought to strengthen the clergy's spiritual life, promote catechesis in parishes, and build bridges with ecclesial movements, always with special attention to the poor and to the dignity of indigenous peoples. His episcopate in Chiclayo was brief but fruitful. In 2020, he was called to Rome and appointed by the Pope as prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, one of the most significant offices of the Roman Curia. In this new mission, he began to take part directly in the selection of new bishops worldwide, becoming one of the Holy Father's principal collaborators in this delicate process of great ecclesial responsibility. His name started to be cited increasingly within the Vatican walls as someone balanced, profoundly faithful to church doctrine, and at the same time possessing concrete pastoral experience in missionary fields. This trajectory of fidelity, service, and humility would prepare the way for a new call from God in his life, the call to be Peter's successor. But that part of the story we will tell in the second part of this video. The appointment of Bishop Robert Prevost as prefect of the Congregation for Bishops in 2023 marked a discreet yet decisive turning point in his life. For the first time, he held one of the most influential positions in the Roman Curia, being directly responsible, together with the Pope, for discerning new pastors for dioceses worldwide. His arrival at the congregation was met with respect and even surprise by some who expected more media-friendly names or figures from ecclesiastical diplomacy. But those who knew him well understood. Prevost was a man of deep discernment, prudence, and a pastor's heart. In his new role, Bishop Robert showed extreme care in analyzing profiles of episcopal candidates. He sought men of prayer with unconditional fidelity to the church, pastoral courage, and sincere love for the truth. He firmly believed that a bishop should not be merely an administrator, but above all a spiritual father, someone able to teach, govern, and sanctify according to the model of the Good Shepherd. In this mission, he also faced resistance. Some sectors expected choices more aligned with particular ideologies or political visions, but Prevost remained firm. His compass was the Church's magisterium, the catechism, and the gospel. Despite the importance of the office, he never ceased to live with simplicity. He continued celebrating daily Mass, hearing confessions, and participating in moments of prayer with his collaborators. His spiritual routine was the source of his equilibrium. In a short time, he earned the trust of cardinals and superiors of other congregations. His discretion, loyalty, and clarity of ideas made him a sought-after counselor within the Vatican walls. When Pope Francis created him a cardinal in 2023, many saw in this decision a deserved recognition of his long trajectory and his silent dedication to the good of the Church. As a cardinal, he received the title of San Marcello al Corso, an ancient church in Rome that symbolically represented his spirituality, centered on Christ crucified, close to the suffering, and deeply rooted in tradition. Even after becoming a cardinal, he continued to avoid the limelight. He preferred listening to speaking, discernment to haste, depth to appearance. In synodal meetings, he spoke little, but when he did, his words were heard attentively. His writings and public interventions were always firmly Catholic, profoundly biblical, and marked by Augustinian spirituality. He did not use ambiguous language that sometimes confuses, but the clarity of the saints. Many young priests and religious began to look to him as a model of fidelity and sobriety. He was not an innovator in the modern sense of the word, but rather a guardian of what truly matters, the truth revealed by Christ. His personal spirituality was marked by three pillars: silence, adoration, and study. It was common to see him in prolonged prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, even after exhausting days of meetings and commitments. He also deeply valued the liturgy, always celebrating with reverence, attention to detail, and fidelity to the rubrics. He often said that the way we celebrate shapes the way we believe. His friendship with various cardinals from different countries made him a bridge between continents. He had special affection for bishops from Africa and Asia, whose churches flourish with missionary vitality and doctrinal fidelity. Even with all this growing influence, he never got involved in internal disputes or factions. He rejected the worldly logic of parties within the Church and reminded that Christ is indivisible. Therefore, his bride must also be. During the transitional period in the Vatican, after Pope Francis's health deteriorated, Bishop Robert remained in prayerful silence. He gave no interviews, made no insinuations. He simply prayed, awaiting God's will. When the sede vacante was declared, many analysts began to speculate names. Prevost was not touted as a favorite by the media. His name circulated among the discreet, those who preferred depth to appearance. Yet within the College of Cardinals, his name emerged strongly in private conversations. Those who knew him recognized his piety, firmness, prudence, and absolute loyalty to the Church. He was not the most charismatic nor the most eloquent, but he was the most trustworthy. And in times of confusion, the Holy Spirit often guides the Church along unexpected paths. In the days leading up to the conclave, Bishop Robert was seen several times praying in the Pauline chapel, silently, his gaze fixed on the crucified Christ. It was as if he were already preparing, unknowingly, for the weight of the Petrine ministry. During the conclave, his behavior was, as always, discreet, recollected, attentive to the voice of the Holy Spirit. He campaigned for nothing, requested no votes, gave no interviews. He simply prayed. In one decisive ballot, his name began to appear consistently. The cardinals saw in him a man of solid faith, concrete experience, and unrestricted trust in the action of the Holy Spirit. When the required number of votes was reached, Robert Prevost bowed his head in silence. After a few moments of recollection, he accepted the mission, uttering words that resounded like a whisper filled with awe. "I accept by the grace of God." He chose the name Leo XIV, a name unused for more than a century and echoing a glorious past, doctrinally firm and pastorally vigilant. But what did that name mean? By accepting the Petrine mission, Robert Francis Prevost chose a name that immediately drew attention and reflection: Leo XIV. It evoked strength, doctrine, and courage, and had not been used since Leo III, the Pope of the encyclical Rerum Novarum. The name Leo is deeply associated with a period in church history when the papacy stood as a moral voice before the modern world, refusing to bow to ideological or political pressures. The choice, therefore, was a sign. Leo XIV, the Great, was the Pope who faced Attila the Hun with firmness and courage and consolidated Christological doctrine at the Council of Chalcedon, a true defender of the faith. Leo XIV, for his part, was a master of the magisterium, author of encyclicals such as Rerum Novarum and Humanum Genus, defender of the Church's social doctrine and combatant against the errors of modernism and secularism. By choosing this name, the new pope seemed to align himself with that spirit of doctrinal clarity, pastoral courage, and commitment to truth. It was not a random choice, but a carefully considered one. From the outset of his pontificate, Leo XIV demonstrated that his governance would be marked by a balance between continuity and authentic renewal, always rooted in the living tradition of the Church. In his presentation speech to the crowd gathered in St. Peter's Square, his first greeting was marked by humility and silence. He did not deliver lengthy speeches. He simply asked for prayers. "Pray for me, that I may be a shepherd after the heart of Christ." In the first days after the election, he maintained a withdrawn routine. He avoided flashes and easy applause, preferring moments of prayer in the Redemptoris Mater Chapel, where he meditated in deep silence before the crucifix. Within the Vatican, he began reorganizing the Curia's spiritual rhythm. He reinforced Eucharistic adoration, reinstated periodic spiritual retreats, and promoted moments of silence for the dicasteries. Many perceived that Leo XIV's style was simple, yet profound. He was not a reformer of structures, but a renewer of hearts, beginning with the clergy and consecrated life. One of the first decisions of his pontificate was to reinforce liturgical fidelity in all papal celebrations. He insisted that Holy Mass be celebrated with beauty, sobriety, and obedience to liturgical norms. Leo XIV also reiterated the need to use Latin in solemn celebrations, not as a sign of elitism, but as an expression of the Church's universal unity, in continuity with Vatican II and its documents. In his meetings with newly appointed bishops, he always repeated, "Doctrine does not belong to us. We are its servants, not its owners." This phrase would become one of the pillars of his pontificate. Looking at Leo XIV's past, we see that his election was not the result of chance, but of the patient work of providence. Every stage of his life silently prepared the one who would one day be the vicar of Christ on earth. The boy who grew up in the pews of a Chicago parish could never have imagined that he would one day guide the Church of Christ. Yet it was precisely this simplicity and steadfastness in the ordinary that shaped him. His mission in Peru taught him to see Christ in the poor, to speak to the people's hearts, and to suffer with those who suffer. It was there, on the world's peripheries, that his heart united deeply with the heart of Jesus. As prior of the Augustinians, he learned to govern prudently, to listen before acting, and to keep doctrine as a compass amid diverse opinions. Fidelity was his silent rule. As bishop, he was a shepherd before he was an administrator. He walked with the faithful, formed the clergy, and paid special attention to those most distant. His episcopal motto was not decoration, but a program of life. As prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, he brought his experience to the heart of the Church without losing his missionary spirit. He knew that the Church lives not in power, but on the cross and in silent self-giving. The College of Cardinals recognized in him that rare coherence, a man with no pretensions, but with a soul anchored in prayer and fidelity to truth. His election was an act of hope for many. In times of confusion, when dissonant voices challenge Catholic doctrine and morals, the figure of Leo XIV stands as a beacon, not authoritarian but firm, not conservative by ideology but by fidelity. His way of teaching is profoundly evangelical. He does not impose, he proposes. He does not shout, he bears witness. He does not yield to the world. Rather, he offers the world what it most needs, the light of Christ. Leo XIV is not a revolutionary. He is, first of all, a restorer of the beauty of the Catholic faith. He seeks to recover what time and relativism have tried to erase, the sense of the sacred, the centrality of the Eucharist, and the clarity of truth. When addressing young people, he challenges them to holiness. He does not soften the gospel to make it more attractive, but shows that the cross is the path to authentic joy and that fidelity is a sign of Christian maturity. To priests, he asks radical fidelity to the magisterium, a life of prayer and zeal for souls. He does not want activist priests, but priests configured to Christ, capable of leading the people to holiness. To families, he recalls the beauty of Christian marriage, the need for prayer at home, and the role of parents as first catechists. His teaching is clear. The Church begins in the family. To religious men and women, he invites spiritual renewal and the rediscovery of consecrated life as an eschatological sign in the world. He asks for less activism and more contemplation, fewer projects and more fidelity to the charism. With bishops, he is fraternal yet demanding. He expects fidelity to the Pope, pastoral zeal, unity with Rome, and courage to face errors without fear of criticism. His spirituality remains deeply anchored in Augustinian tradition. He lives from interiority, humility, and the constant search for God. He knows the Church is not governed by rules alone, but by knees bent in prayer. In the ecumenical field, Leo XIV seeks unity without concessions to truth. He dialogues with respect, but never dilutes doctrine. His vision is clear. True unity can exist only in the full truth revealed by Christ. In social matters, he insists that justice begins with fidelity to natural law. He defends the poor, but recalls that the greatest poverty is living without God. Charity, for him, always comes accompanied by truth. In dealing with the media, he maintains prudent distance. He prefers to speak through gestures, solid documents, and the witness of life. He does not seek media protagonism, but spiritual efficacy. His speeches are dense, anchored in tradition, with strong references to the fathers of the Church, the councils, and the constant magisterium. He does not invent novelties. He simply recalls the essential with new light. The mark of his pontificate, even in its early years, is restoration, not the restoration of empty forms, but the restoration of the Catholic spirit, doctrinal clarity, and holiness as a universal vocation. Many faithful around the world have rekindled their enthusiasm for the faith, rediscovering the value of Mass, frequent confession, the Rosary, and fidelity to the Pope. Leo XIV has sparked a dormant flame. Naturally, there is resistance. There always has been. But Leo XIV is not intimidated. His gaze remains fixed on Christ, like St. Peter walking on the waters. He knows that outside the bark, there is only storm. In the end, what Leo XIV's past teaches us is that great popes do not arise from campaigns or slogans. They are born from the silence of prayer, fidelity to daily duty, and the courage to say yes to God. Leo XIV is not a media hero. He is a father, a shepherd, a servant of truth, and that is precisely what the Church needs in turbulent times. Not stars, but saints. Everything indicates that Leo XIV's past prepared him exactly for this.